Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet, and another best of the week edition. So the first portion of the video, a couple of quick hits on the fallout from Fury-Ngannou over the past week. There is some other stuff that I've covered in the immediate aftermath, either on this channel immediately after the fight or also on Patreon, which you can check out. The Patreon link is in the description. But the WBC president Mauricio Sulaiman, that's where we'll start first, saying that Francis Ngannou should be ranked despite Fury defeat. And the thing is with this, I can't make heads nor tails of it, because a boxer with a 0-0 record loses a fight, albeit relatively close fight, but somehow he should be ranked. Make it make sense. And one of the other things that, the headline that came out this week was from Francis Ngannou, who said that those judges who scored the fight for Fury should be sanctioned. And this is another point that sort of irks me, is, Fury underperformed, Ngannou overperformed, but it was a close fight. And a close fight, if it goes either way, is not a robbery. And this is the thing. Did Francis Ngannou win 11 rounds to 1? No, he did not. I mean, if anything, especially the last couple of rounds, if people want to go back and watch, Francis Ngannou in the final 2 rounds of that fight did next to nothing. Fury, through, the second half of the fight, was trying to pick Francis Ngannou's pocket. He was boxing more defensively, but he was using the jab. He was picking up some rounds. It was a close fight. Despite the knockdown, I had Fury winning a tight fight. But I'm open to people saying that Francis Ngannou, could have gone the other way because there were some low volume rounds. But a close fight doesn't mean it's a robbery. And that's the thing that's kind of annoying with all this, because, it's a overused word. And Francis Ngannou says that the judges should be sanctioned. Maybe Francis Ngannou should learn the definition of a robbery, because it wasn't. You've got Frank Warren saying that he plans to meet with Francis Ngannou about working together. And I guess why wouldn't he? But, with the Usyk and Fury fight, I think realistically takes a bit of a dent from what happened. Should they be looking to have a rematch? I know for most boxing fans, hardcore boxing fans, boxing purists, they had the fight. It was a legitimate cash grab. Sure, it went a little bit wonky for Fury, but why would they have a rematch when there's Undisputed ready and waiting? But some people have said the value of the Undisputed fight is diminished, that Fury should actually rematch Ngannou. So I kind of think if they fought again, Fury puts in a better performance and he beats him. As it was, he beat him the first time, and you had professional judges saying that he did. And one of the things that I found funny was, if you think that Tyson Fury won the fight, people who are fans of Francis Ngannou are saying you're biased because you thought Fury would win the fight, and he did win the fight. I think it's more of a case that, if you watch the fight objectively, Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou in a relatively low volume fight. Some rounds it was a few punches here and there, and obviously you had a dramatic knockdown, but outside of that, a pretty negative Francis Ngannou looking for counters a lot of the time, and Tyson Fury using a jab and sometimes not much else in some rounds. But the jab is a weapon, that is a point scorer, and obviously in the judges' view it's enough to get a decision. Fury has obviously come out saying that he trained hard. He thought it was a much more dangerous fight than Oleksandr Usyk, and he's always been saying that, yada, yada, yada. But, of course, ahead of a fight that a decent chunk of boxing fans, at least, maybe not so much casual sporting fans or MMA fans, but decent chunk of boxing fans were just seeing as an out-and-out, cash grab. And let's face it, it was. That's why it was held. Fury is not defending his WBC title in 2023. And that's the other weird thing about this. You've got some weirdo saying that Fury should be giving his title to Francis Ngannou, even though he beat Ngannou in a fight where the title wasn't even on the line. Like I say, make it make sense. You've got so many absolute objective weirdos that have zero idea about some of this stuff, saying some of the most bizarre comments. It's unbelievable. But a winner out of that whole thing clearly is Mike Tyson, who trained Ngannou, and Tyson was quoted as saying, "We got a performance that even we didn't anticipate." But I guess, you know, Francis Ngannou, heavily muscle-bound, the style of being economical and being a counterpuncher, it worked well. And, you know, he's clearly spent some time in the gym and he was able to, you know, try to frustrate Fury to make things happen. And at certain points, he was able to catch him. So, you know, not just trying to sort of blow his wad in about 3 rounds. You know, he was able to, you know, be patient and let his hands go at the appropriate time. And he, you know, landed on Fury and in a couple of occasions, big shots, one that put him to the canvas. You've got Zhilei, who described that fight as a night of shame for boxing. And I guess because it would have been considered one of the biggest upsets of all time in boxing history. And some people are saying it's a robbery, including Ngannou, and the general feeling and flavour, including from boxing fans, is, you know, this kind of went sideways. And there's legitimate questions about Fury's motivation. Did he take it seriously? Because he didn't look right in there. The legs didn't look good. He looked a very beatable fighter. Ponderous, slow, and hittable, even though he had all the advantages, except obviously power in that one. And a couple of other things that sort of come out of left field, that Deontay was looking to fight Francis Ngannou and even potentially open to it in the cage. You've had Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter, saying that they're looking to a potential fight with Francis Ngannou. Obviously, for a lot of other heavyweight boxers, he's become an immediate and obvious option for a similar cash grab. Ngannou sort of solidified some credentials in the boxing sphere despite having a record of 0-1. But if you knock down the WBC heavyweight champion, obviously that is going to get you a fair amount of street cred. And as Eddie Hearn said, he said Fury looked petrified, and after the knockdown he didn't want to engage. But for Francis Ngannou, it was all upside. Anyway, one of the other things from the fallout is that Tyson Fury is not going to be fighting for Undisputed on December the 23rd. And sometimes Fury, with his behaviour in fight week, for example, saying that Usyk had no choice to fight him, but after a less than stellar performance against Ngannou for a split decision win, all of a sudden he's saying, see you next year, and Frank Warren's backing it up, saying, no, we're going to, Fury needs a break now, after having basically a year out of the ring. So kind of make it make sense. But you did have Oleksandr Usyk saying, look, if there's an injury, yeah, okay. He says, we have a date in the contract, but come on, we are reasonable people. If he's really injured and he is really unable to fight, that might happen to any fighter. It has to be done in the proper way. If he's really injured, then there is some kind of medical procedure that certifies his injury. Then probably that's okay. If it's just they don't want to fight Usyk because he's weak and they don't want to take risks, then it doesn't sound reasonable for me, because you know why? What's the difference between losing to Usyk on December 23rd or losing to Usyk on January 17 or losing to Usyk, let's say, February 13th? There's no significant difference. The sooner, the better. And let's face it, if they have to go through some medical procedure, I'm sure a doctor can be persuaded for some sort of injury that's hard to dispute, like some sort of back injury, something like that. But we're not getting it this year. So Tyson Fury will spend 2023 not having defended his belt at all. But you have a case with Eddie Hearn further weighing in. I'm telling you, I'm saying it with a big chest and all my heart now, all my brain. Anthony Joshua beats Tyson Fury every day of the week. He knocks him spark out, and you can go around and you can say he's frozen out, he's a dosser, I'm a dosser. We know the weaknesses, and it ain't what it used to be, referring to his chin. Make the fight AJ against Fury. And it's funny because often the best thing for a fighter can be a bit of a subpar performance, because then everyone seemingly wants to make a fight with them. But Hearn continued, you better go and beat Usyk, because you do. You have to make the AJ fight. You cannot retire without fighting Anthony Joshua, but he'll do the job for you because he'll put you into retirement, I promise you that. So all the promoters like an Eddie Hearn are puffing their chest out for their guy at this point. After his win over David Adelaide in Saudi Arabia, a potential fight with Frazer Clarke is on the table. And Fabio Wardley says, look, if he wants to do it, he's ready to knuckle up and get it on. Yeah, I'm more than happy to get that done. Me and Frazer have our back and forths, but I'll give him the credit that he will probably be the toughest test of my career so far. He's a decorated amateur. He's got good history of boxing behind him. He's got a good head switched on, and he knows what he's doing in that ring, so I'll have to bring my full game, but it's something I'm more than willing to do. So I guess we'll see what happens there. The talk of that fight, personally, I think Wardley starts favourite. Frazer Clarke has looked dead average so far in his professional career. He's looking like he's not going too far and may have waited too long and in the amateurs before turning pro. I think Wardley seemingly has quite a few advantages over Clarke, but hey, we got to see the fight, and I don't mind it. Let's face it, Fabio Wardley needs more seasoning before he gets to that fringe sort of world level. I mean, I heard him say in another interview that he was like, I'm a serious contender, what else do I need to do? Well, you need to sort of build through the levels. Beating slightly unproven guys like David Adelaide at a domestic level does not mean that you're a world, ranked contender or a guy that is necessarily in line next for a title shot. Let's face it, if he's backfilling the lack of an amateur career, few white collar fights before he turned pro, if he is going to slowly step through some of these guys like a Frazer Clarke, it makes some sense because it's a good fight for this point of his career. But he's still got to go in there and show us what he's got. Because, Fabio Wardley can say what he wants, but he's been fighting at a domestic level. Might be a good level. It might be against relatively good opposition, but he's not a world beater at this point. You've got Zhilei. He's calling out Anthony Joshua for the end of the year. And Joshua was at the Formula One Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. Was it in Austin? And obviously we know he's back in Texas. He's in training, that sort of stuff with Derek James. And he was saying he was targeting a fight by the end of the year, in December. Eddie Hearn has said that date is potentially, or that, a fight by the end of the year is still potentially on the table. And Zhang says, look, pick me. But the fact Zhang is signed with Frank Warren probably does limit things a little bit. But Zhang says, that's definitely an option for me. You heard Anthony Joshua saying there are options out there, but is he serious? Send the contract over, and if everything looks good, I'll sign it right away. Right now, we're still looking to see what happens with the unification, because the unification overrides everything. We're still looking to see what happens with that. But with that done, and it's out of the way, then definitely I'll exercise my mandatory challenger position. The options are open and still out there. But for me and my team, we're looking at the top names. We're looking at Fury, Usyk, Joshua, Wilder. However, if those guys don't want to accept my challenge or run away from me, that's a different story. Then we go to boxers like Parker, Ortiz, Chisora, Dubois. Everything's possible. I'm not scared of fighting anyone. My target right now is for the bigger names. Couple of fights, probably not possible there at the moment due to promotional considerations. But, you could potentially see Parker. He's not tied down to anyone at the moment. He's worked with Frank Warren before for the Joe Joyce fight. Potentially that could happen. I mean, Derek Chisora is with Anthony Joshua's management company, but if the money's right, maybe that's possible. But you'd think Chisora would be fighting on Joshua's next undercard. Luis Ortiz is sort of, question mark, who knows. Daniel Dubois is in the same stable, but is Frank Warren going to potentially, risk Dubois, mid-20s, coming off another loss? Is he going to put him straight in with a big puncher who could, maybe, put a dent in him and potentially end his career? Not so sure. He's kind of, who needs him club. And while people say, there could be a big fight in China, there's been talk of that for years, but nothing's really come to fruition, and even now it's just a bit of a pipe dream. Zhang Zhilei, a man, at least he's with a promoter, potential for fights. We'll see what happens. Someone else who signed with Frank Warren is Solomon Dacres. So he has left Matchroom. His deal must have expired. He says, proud to announce, I'm now signed with Queensberry to get me in the heavyweight title mix, making big moves to capture the heavyweight title. We are coming for them all. And with Queensberry having Tyson Fury, Zhang Zhilei, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, David Adelaide, Moses Utoma, and now Solomon Dacres, that's a very solid heavyweight stable. Far stronger than Matchroom's, which has sort of been depleted and decimated in recent years with guys just either leaving, not being re-signed. There's a whole bundle at one point that were on those DAZN deals that have just sort of seemingly walked away. And it's unclear as well with Fabio Wardley, because his deal was up with Matchroom and DAZN, and he went to Frank Warren for this fight against David Adelaide. Unclear if Warren's got any options on him for another fight or something like that. But if they do, Solomon Dacres and Fabio Wardley, that's a decent fight. F.A. Ajagba, he's weighed in on that whole situation with Zhang from a couple of months ago when he fought him. Kossobutsky was annoyed that Ajagba was punching low, so he responded in kind and kept responding until the point he was disqualified. So Ajagba says, he didn't want me to take him out. He felt the power, he felt the heat, that's why he was doing that. He couldn't handle it, so he got himself disqualified. I was not surprised, I was not happy at that moment. I tried to take him out, so he chose to do it on his own. And there was a number of punches that Ajagba had strayed low and he wasn't sort of warned. Kossobutsky, just a brain explosion, and probably, he may not get another chance because he's mid-30s at this point to sort of put himself on that similar stage. And it's a shame because Kossobutsky, obviously a talented guy. And rounding up proceedings with this video. So Tony Yoka has officially been confirmed to face the former cruiserweight Riyad Merhi in December, the 9th of December, at Roland Garros in France. So Yoka, coming off a couple of really big defeats in his career, left him as a bit of an also-ran at this point, losing to Carlos Takam and was beaten up badly by Martin Bakole last year. So he's looking to bounce back, and with the deal in place with Canal, they're probably wanting to get him into fights that make sense, make money, but also try to put him back on track. Riyad Merhi's had a couple of decent performances at cruiserweight, but if Yoka's got anything left in the tank, got to go in there, got to win well. And I know some people will be saying, well, why is he facing a cruiserweight? I guess maybe it comes down to he's had those losses. Maybe this is seen as safe matchmaking to the point where it could be competitive in spots, but he should get the win. But he really needs it. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.